Hello friends, welcome to another video of Zeta axis, and today we are going to see another climate system of GC Leong book. Today we will discuss the Arctic or polar climate. So here we can see the regions which experience the Arctic type of climate or the polar type of climate, which is marked in this blue color. The white regions are the regions having ice caps. So here we have permanent ice in this region, while these are the regions where we have polar type of climate. So the polar type of climate is found north of Arctic Circle. Remember, there is this Arctic Circle, and generally it is in the north of this Arctic Circle we have this polar type of climate. Ice caps are confined to Greenland and highlands of high altitude in this region. So we see that these are the ice caps. There are certain regions which are having higher mountains. So we see that the ice caps are confined to those regions. Ground is permanently snow covered. Lowlands have few months without ice, and tundra vegetation is found over here. So most of the regions have permanent snow cover, but there are lowlands, valleys and other regions where there are few summer months where we do not have ice, and in those summer months we have tundra vegetation. We will see these characteristics in the later part of this video. So let's see the distribution. Coastal strip of Greenland. We can see along the coastal strip of Greenland we have this type of climate. Then we have northern Canada, which is mostly barren. This is also the region where we have the polar type of climate. Then Alaska, which is part of US. Then we have Eurasia, north of Arctic. So in Eurasia, north of Arctic, you will see the polar type of climate. Then we have Antarctica, which has the greatest single stretch of ice cap, and thickness of the ice layers here can be as much as 10,000 feet. So in the southern hemisphere we have Antarctica, where we see this type of climate. Now let's see the temperature characteristics. It has very low mean annual temperature. That is, the temperature is very low. We can see that the temperature can fall to -25, even -30 degrees Celsius in certain regions. Summer is cool and brief. We can see that the summer temperature is below 10 degrees Celsius. So it is cool and it is very short-lived. Warmest month is generally the June month or the July month, and it seldom rises above 10 degrees Celsius. There are only 4 months. We can clearly see there are only 4 months where the temperature is above 0 degrees Celsius. Winter is very long and very severe. Temperature -30, -25 degrees Celsius are normal over here, and even it is much colder in the interior part. To understand why these regions have very harsh climate, you have to understand how our Earth rotates. It rotates on this inclined axis. Here the sun is facing this Earth, which is having an inclined axis away from the sun in the December month. This is the winter time, which is the winter time in northern hemisphere and summer in southern hemisphere. So here in northern hemisphere we will see that the sun just passes over the Arctic Circle, which is over here. So this region gets very less amount of sunlight during the day, and therefore the amount of heat that is received from the sun is very less during the winter, and even in summer you will see that the heat received is very less. So at North Pole and South Pole we have 6 months of sun and 6 months of night. So exactly at the North Pole and the South Pole you will see that for 6 months there is continuous sunlight, and for 6 months there is continuous darkness. And even the sunlight which reaches over here is very inclined. You can see that the sun, it never rises very high above the horizon. It remains very close to the horizon. Therefore the sunlight which is received, it is spread over a very large area. Moreover, it passes through a very large distance in the atmosphere where it is scattered. So the intensity of the light is very less in this region. Therefore, it cannot heat this region. Another important cause is snow has high albedo. Albedo means the ratio of sunlight which is reflected. So here we can see that the sun ray which is falling on the snow, 90% of this sunlight is reflected. And if the same sunlight passes on water, we see only 6% is reflected. So the snow over here has very high albedo. Therefore, most of the sunlight which reaches over here is reflected back. That is why the intensity of the sun light decreases over here. Moreover, the water in the ground is frozen. You can see this frozen layer. This is ice. This is the groundwater which freezes because of very high winter over here. Summer heat can only melt the upper 6 inches. So only the upper 6 inches is melts in the summer. Rest of it remains frozen. We can see that there is this active layer where the snow will melt, but there is this permanent iced water in the ground, which is called permafrost. So this groundwater is frozen permanently. Summer can only melt the water in this region. Ground remains frozen for all but 4 months. Only for 4 months of summer, the top 6 inches, the snow or water will melt. Faint sun rays used in melting snow. So whatever sunlights they reach over here, it is used for melting the snow in the top 6 inch. Little power to raise the air temperature. Therefore, very less heat is remaining, which can increase the temperature, and that is why we have very low temperature in this region. Frost can occur anytime over here. Again, blizzards occur in this region, where blizzards are cold winds having a speed of up to 200 km per hour. These are the polar winds which descend in the lower latitude, that is around 70 to 80 degree altitude, and therefore we get very strong cold winds over here, which decreases the temperature of this region. Again, the coastal regions which has warm ocean current meeting cold current, there is thick fog which also blocks the sunlight, thus increasing the coolness of this area. Precipitation is mostly in the form of snow because mostly it is winter over here and the temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius. So for most of the months the temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius, therefore the precipitation is mainly in the form of snow. It is caused by cold winters, blizzards and cold polar winds. 10 to 12 inch of snow makes up 1 inch of rainfall. Therefore, precipitation is overall less. So we can see that almost 10 to 12 inch of snowfall, when it melts, it forms 1 inch of rainfall. Therefore, the overall precipitation in this region is less, even though the snowfall could be very high. It could be 4 feet, 5 feet, 12 feet. Still, the total amount of precipitation will be less. Convectional rainfall is absent in this region. That is the rainfall which occurs due to heating of the ground. Here it is almost absent because low rate of evaporation. First of all, there is not much evaporation due to very low temperatures. So there is not abundant moisture in the air. Lack of moisture in cold polar air and low heat from the sun. So because of these three conditions, convectional rainfalls do not occur in these regions. Summer has maximum temperature and precipitation is also maximum in summer, which we can see because the precipitation is in the form of rain or sleet. So here we see that in the summer months we have rainfall in the form of rain, and in the winter months we have precipitation in the form of snow. Now here the anticyclones may develop over snow because the snow is very cold. High pressure region will exist over the snow, and therefore there will be descending air over here. The air is heated when it is descending. Now because of this adiabatically heating, the moisture carrying capacity of the air increases, and we see that it will not give rainfall. Moreover, because the starting temperature of this air is very low, that is, it is very cold, therefore adiabatically heating does not increase the temperature significantly. Rainfall which occurs in summer because this time there is relatively more evaporation. Coastal regions, they experience cyclones which are stronger, and these cyclones have a tendency towards winter maximum. So even these cyclones, they give some amount of rainfall. Now let's see the vegetation in the polar type of climate. So because of the adverse environment, few plants survive. We have seen that there is only 4 months of summer and rest of is very cold winter. The temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius for 8 months. Therefore, because of the severe climate over here, very few plants survive. Trees are absent because growing season is less than 4 months. Cold, severe temperature in the winters, as well as frozen groundwater. We have seen that below the 6 inches, the groundwater is frozen. Therefore, the tree roots cannot go inside it. They cannot search for water. Even if the water is there, they cannot carry it up because it is in the form of ice. Environment therefore supports only lowest form of vegetation. These are the mosses, lichens, sedges. So only these kind of simple vegetation can be seen in these regions. There is poor drainage in tundra because subsoil permanently frozen. We have seen that the subsoil region, the water is frozen because of the very high winter cold. Here we can see that this is the region, only the active layer, that is only the above 6 inches, the water gets melted in the summer. Rest of it is permanently frozen, which is called permafrost. Rivers are also frozen for most of the year. Ponds, marshes, waterlogged regions are found in the hollow. So we see that the rivers are also not able to drain water. Now in the sheltered spots which have relatively some factors which reduce the effect of the winter, we see stunted birches and dwarf willows as well as undersized alders grow over here. So some trees do grow over here where the climate is relatively favorable. Coastal regions, we see climate relatively better because of the presence of the oceans, and hardy grasses grow over here. In the polar type of climate, we see that reindeer moss is a most important type of vegetation. It is the only pasture for reindeer. So because the reindeers, they consume this type of grasses, it is called reindeer moss, and they even consume it in the winters. So when there is this type of ice cover, they will break the ice with their hoofs and then they will eat those types of mosses. Now in the summer, the snow melts and the days are warmer and longer, and because of the snow melt, water is available. Therefore we see that bushes will come up in these regions. Berry bearing bushes and Arctic flowers bloom, and they are short lived. But because of these, the Arctic resembles a treeless grassland. So it looks like a grassland, like the prairies, and therefore it is called Arctic prairies. So during the summer, because of melting of the snow, there is abundant amount of water. The temperature is also favorable, and these grasses, they can grow in 6 inches of soil. They do not require longer roots. Therefore we see abundant of these types of grasses. They come in the summer and they give it a look of a grassland, just like the prairies. Now let's see the human activities in this region. Human activities are generally confined to the coastal regions. Interiors, highlands and plateaus, they have very severe temperature. Therefore, the activities are generally confined to coastal regions. People here are mostly semi-nomadic life. So, they are not settled in a place, but they have a very semi-nomadic life because agriculture is not there. So, settlement was not a practice over here. They are mostly hunters and gatherers. Eskimos, they live in Greenland, Alaska and North Canada. North Finland, we have Lapps and Scandinavian. Samoyed are seen in Ural Mountains and Yangtze Basin. Yakuts are seen in Lena Basin. Koryaks and Chukchi are seen in northeastern Asia. In Siberia, we see reindeer herding is practiced. Russia has established large farms for reindeer herding. So, just like cattle herding, here reindeer herding is performed, where large stock of reindeers are kept. Now, Eskimos, which live in Greenland, Alaska and North Canada, they are mainly hunters, fishermen or food gatherers. In winter, they live in the igloos. In summer, they go for hunting and they have small tents, which can be carried from one place to another. They generally hunt whales, seals, fishes or furred animals, and food mainly comprises of fish, seal, walrus and reindeer. Because of the increasing contact of the Eskimos with the world, they are adapting modern technology and settled life. Now, discovery of minerals in the Arctic has also transformed the region. Gold was discovered in Alaska, nickel was discovered in Petsamo, Russia, petroleum in Kenai Peninsula of Alaska, coal in Alaska. So because of these minerals, mineral mining has been flourishing in this region, and therefore there are large settlements which has come up in this region. Human settlements have come up at the mines, railroads, ports are established to connect and transport the minerals. Seaports have been transported, so seaports have also been developed. They transport not only minerals but fur and timber. Specific icebreaker ships have been used over here. So this is an example of icebreaker ships which breaks the ice cover in the winter and allows transportation in this region. With this, we will conclude our video on the polar type of climate as discussed in GC Leong. We have covered all the type of climatic conditions discussed in GC Leong, so do watch all of those videos. If you have liked the video, then do subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. And if you like what we are doing, then you can use the Paytm ID. Thanks for watching the video.